I haven't gone through and looked at the entirety of the NFL and position by position to know how much availability is going to be there, but at least in terms of the safety position, there is a good bit of names, a plethora, as you mentioned, of guys that are veterans that are going to be up as free agents. First and foremost, let's start at the top. There's two names really in our A tier of free agent safeties that could be available that are likely going to be the best possible options and perform the best on the field, but at the same time will also likely cost the most money and might be too much for the Jets to want to invest. We're talking top of the market, top five at their position paid annually safeties. First and foremost, Jesse Bates in Cincinnati, a guy that I feel like Jets fans have been familiar with for years now, where he's been up for a contract and had the franchise tag, I believe, last year. Free safety who can also play man, great range deep, great ball skills, great instincts, plenty of pass deflections and interceptions in his short career, and he's still young. He's only 25, I believe, and he'll only be right now. He'll only be 26 at the start of next season,
Hmm.
and he's already a well-seasoned veteran. I think looking at the Jets safety position, this is going to be something that we're going to reference going back and forth, talking about fits for this team. The one thing that at least stuck out to me more than anything else, and I know you agree with this, Matt, our safeties need to play man to man,
Oh
that
yeah.
it is going to happen at some point or another, whether the Jets are going to get in their third and long situation and they're going to want to send that blitz, whether it's cover zero, cover one, any sort of drop coverage, whatever. You're going to have safeties lined up on receivers in man to man coverage one on one, and they're going to have to go out and win. So it is a huge, ticking point in the checklist of what are we looking for Jets safeties in 2023. It seems counterintuitive, but number one for me is man to man skills. Where if you got to be able to play zone, absolutely, you got to be a secure tackler. You got to have your eyes in the right place. If you're playing, I think more the free safety role that we're looking for, assuming Whitehead is back and assuming Joyner isn't, you got to have someone with that range deep with good eyes that doesn't let anything get behind them. That's all important too. I'm not trying to discredit that whatsoever, but there was so many times this past season where quite honestly, it was the Achilles heel of the entire defense for the Jets, where they would get in third and long situations and get exactly what they would want. And then Lamarcus Joyner's isolated on Tyler Boyd, and it ends up 25 yards down the field for a first down. And things like that just can't happen anymore. So looking at guys like Bates, I think he absolutely fits that criteria. He's had some man-to-man skills in his past. He played slot corner at Wake Forest in college, has had some match situations in Cincinnati as well, and also has the excellent ability as a deep safety and as a robber coming downhill from deep, trying to rob over the middle. Great ball skills, like I said before. He's the number one guy for a reason. And if he gets out of Cincinnati and isn't franchise tagged again, he's going to hit the open market and he's probably going to be making top of the line, number one at his position, possibly type money. I don't know if the Jets can afford that. After that is a guy you brought up before we were recording, Matt, that I didn't even realize was an undrafted free agent. That's Chauncey Gardner Johnson in Philadelphia. Go ahead and tell us about him because you seem to have your thumb on his forehead a lot more than I did. So fill us in on CGJ.
Yeah, Chauncey Gardner Johnson was a guy I kind of liked coming out in 2019 from Florida. Uh, I know we kind of have a thing out for Florida guys, but this guy has turned out okay. All right, he's played a lot of cornerback, mostly slot, uh, before 2022. But this year he played a lot more safety, especially a free safety. So I think he had close to almost 450 snaps at free safety, but also about 200 snaps in the box. He is a ruthless guy back there. He's a ball of energy. He's a gnat. I love the guys that are like gnats. They're just always around you. They're stuck to you. You can't swat them away. They're just come right back. Uh, he is. I'm definitely a fan of his. He was a giant part of that Eagles Super Bowl team. Um, and I think that he's going to be highly sought after. I could definitely see him in that top tier uh, with Bates and kind of garnering a lot of a giant sum of money. So these two guys, Bates, Gardner Johnson, they're the cream of the crop. I know people are gonna just automatically like say, "Oh, get these guys," but we're gonna be in kind of a money crunch here. We gotta be a little bit uh more. We gotta be smarter with our money. We gotta get the guys that we need, but also not break the bank doing it. So when you have the guys like Bates and Gardner Johnson, with what they've done this year, with what they've done in their larger body of work, you see guys that everybody's going to want, but again, they're going to really want to get paid for what they've earned, and they deserve it. So kudos to them. They're going to get it. But for us, we kind of need to go into a different direction. And that kind of leads us to the next tier. Two guys that I think we really should be looking at are Jimmy Ward and Jordan Poyer. Jimmy Ward already knows the system. And this year, I feel like he's kind of been thrown out of sorts and thrown into a position that he didn't even really like very well. I think he was used a lot more in the slot as a cornerback and not as a safety. And I believe I've seen comments from him saying that he really didn't want to be used in that role anymore. And
Well, goes a
so,
lot further than that.
please.
I don't know if you're fully aware, but Jimmy Ward himself, a video that was since deleted, as most videos ends up being before NFL media screen records them anyway and makes that irrelevant. He was, I believe it was on Instagram Live, and talking about a situation. I don't know if it was at the end of the year or in the playoffs, but sometimes towards the end of the season, where he goes into Kyle Shanahan's office and he says, Coach, I don't want to be playing as much slot. I want to be playing more safety. I think I can be better served as a free safety. I think that's where my better position is. And Kyle Shanahan reportedly tells him, again, reportedly going off Jimmy Ward's word himself, Kyle Shanahan tells him, okay, well, do you want to ride the bench then? And basically tells him, well, you're playing slot whether you like it or not, so you better figure it out. And if you think you're going to decide where I'm going to put you, then so be it. Didn't seem like he was too happy about that. Didn't
No.
seem like that, made him pretty eager to return to San Francisco for another year, on top of the fact that they're going to be breaking in another new defensive coordinator. DeMeco Ryans is headed off to Houston to become their head coach. I'm not entirely sure if they've made a hire to replace him already. I imagine they would likely promote internally or find someone that's familiar with the same defense. I don't expect Kyle Shanahan to want to completely change things, but maybe there was a close relationship with DeMeco Ryans, which I would imagine most players have with his reputation and his ability as a former player himself. I would imagine that him not being there might influence things, and the ability to go back to a scheme again he's familiar with a coach that he's already familiar with and had a lot of success with in Robert Saleh. I mean, we've seen multiple players now leave and want to come back to play for Robert Saleh in New York when they had been with him before because of his reputation and because of how respected he was when they were with him before. I think Jimmy Ward's the first name to look at. I think he's, quite honestly, I think he should be target A, because the familiarity is going to make things easy for the few young guys that might be on the roster. If Davis isn't cut, Tony Adams being a second year former undrafted free agent, having another guy that can teach him the system and show him the ropes, I think would be huge. Anybody they might draft in the later rounds potentially to add depth, I think it would help them. Even if Davis does stay, I think he could learn a lot from Jimmy Ward. And in terms of price, I don't think he's going to cost an absolute gigantic amount. I think he could be had probably for a similar deal to what Whitehead signed for last year.
Yeah, I could see that. And going back to something you said before, about having to need somebody that can cover. He definitely fits the bill. Even though he didn't want to play so much corner this year, he was still very good at it. He had probably one of the best years in terms of yards per reception in his entire career as a slot corner. So it's not like the move to the slot really hurt him that much. So he's definitely a formidable corner. And if you look at the way we kind of went into most of the games last year, as far as the roster, how it was made up, we would have how many quarterbacks? It would be Sauce, Reed, Eccles, and Carter, and that's it. They relied a lot on the safeties to really kind of fill the depth. So let's say if there's any kind of a significant injury bug going around in the corner room, having a guy like Ward or Gardner,
Yeah.
uh, it adds tremendous value because you can just plug and play and not get any drop off, especially in the slot. I can definitely see them if Eccles and one of the starters goes down, they would move Carter out there. and then they could just slip Ward right in, and they wouldn't miss a beat. And one of the biggest things from last year is missed tackles, especially in the middle of the field with the safeties and the linebackers. And Ward, he's got one of the lowest missed tackle rates I've seen for a safety. He's got a 4.9 career missed tackle rate. That's very impressive. So when it comes to reliable guys that you can just plug and play in multiple places, Ward is the guy.
Yeah, I really think so. I really think that if I was a betting man and I had to put money down on which free agent safety the Jets might sign, if they sign any of them, I think it would be Jimmy Ward. I just think it makes too much sense with the familiarity. It makes too much sense with the need. The price isn't going to be, egregious to where I think it can be doable as well. It just makes too much sense to not be an expected option. Let's rattle off some of the other options as well, because there are some other guys down the list. Like we've said, this is such a deep position in free agency. Behind guys like Jimmy Ward, you have Jordan Poyer in Buffalo, who's been an excellent player there for a long, long time. Seems like from what he's been hinting when the money with Buffalo and everything else that he may be looking to hit the open market, might command more than a Jimmy Ward or, somebody else down the line. But I also think that he's proven to be a better player over the last handful of years. And so you're getting what you pay for. And he absolutely could fit the scheme. I don't think he's had as much of a career in man-to-man, but I do think he has had some of it, especially as a match defender. And I think as a free safety, he would absolutely fit 110%, really help out with the communication and instincts on that back end. After that, you got guys like Vonn Bell in Cincinnati, who's more of a box safety, but still has some experience in coverage, isn't a slouch in coverage by any means, would certainly help without missing tackles, has been a very secure tackler throughout his career. Eric Rowe in Miami, another guy who's over 30, but has a lot of experience, especially playing man to man. The Dolphins have played a ton of man coverage over the last handful of years, and Eric Rowe has been a part of that. And then a couple of guys down the list where the familiarity aspect comes into play. And the first guy I want to mention, Matt, that we were going through this list and we brought up that really kind of stunned me was Damontae Kazee, who's currently in Pittsburgh. The history that he has with this system is extensive. He spent most of his career from 2017 through 2020 through 2020 in Atlanta. That was under Dan Quinn, who is another Seattle scheme disciple, and also
somebody by
played,
Ulbrich.
and somebody by the name of Jeff Ulbrich that was also there as well, the Jets' current defensive coordinator. He goes and spends a year in Dallas in 2021, again following Quinn playing that same sort of role, and now he's spent a year in Pittsburgh. I don't think he's going to be expensive whatsoever. And I think that what you would be getting in Kazee for the price and with the ability like Jimmy Ward to come in and walk in day one and already know the defense and already know what he's doing and know his role and be able to execute it well. I really think that that could be a really solid option. He's going to turn 30 in June. So again, not super, super young, but not egregiously old. And I think he's a guy that could be had for even less than Jimmy Ward and might be close to a service level replacement if that were to be the case.
Then you got guys like Tashaun Gibson, who has a lot of experience in the system. He's coming from the 49ers himself. Some other names, we just rattle them off. Let's see, Carl Joseph for the Steelers. You have let's see, Landon Collins and the Giants, Tony Jefferson also from the Giants, Jabril Peppers, who coming from the Patriots, and also the Browns, Logan Ryan on the Buccaneers. Did we say Keanu Neal yet?
I don't think we did. That's another
Keanu
one
Neal,
with,
another
a
one.
good familiarity with this defense. And the one guy, on top of that I want to highlight, Tashaun Gibson was somebody that you didn't even realize was still in the NFL before we started looking up and researching for this episode. But a guy, again, that has experience in the defense, was in Jacksonville in 2017 with Robert Saleh when he was an assistant under Gus Bradley and was on that Jags defense that went all the way to the AFC Championship game, played a lot of free safety, had some times playing man-to-man as well. There is so many options here. It's ridiculous. And it kind of is just staring everyone in the face at this point that the Jets can absolutely 110% sign a veteran safety in free agency without breaking the bank and still get a pretty solid player as a result.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually probably wouldn't be opposed to getting maybe two guys, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys here. The market is kind of flush. So there's going to be this is kind of a buyer's market in terms of
It really
safeties.
is.
So I think we can maybe get two solid guys on the cheap. Maybe a Jimmy Ward and somebody maybe a little older, like Deshaun Gibson, and just have the 49ers safeties as our
Jimmy
safeties
Ward
this
and
year,
Keanu Neal.
or in Keanu Neal. And you can make a bunch of pairings here, and it makes a lot of sense. Uh, so yeah, this is kind of the way we should probably be looking. That's not to say that we can't add depth in the draft, but really, this is really the smart play. You go to where the strengths are, whether it's the draft or free agency. If you have a strong free agent class of safeties, then that is where you should really put your focus in the position. Otherwise, you're just forcing things. Uh, and that's not to say that the safety class in the draft is a horrible one, but I don't think it's incredibly strong. I would definitely say the strength of free agency in free agency is a lot stronger. So don't force it. Don't. It doesn't need to be such a hard thing. Just go with the flow, and the flow is saying, look at the free agents.